Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Podcast Pasta. That's a podcast that's like pasta, not the podcast that's about pasta. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today I'm joined with DieMango. You are a pixel artist. You're known for your OC work as well as a lot of fan work on the marathon series, I think with kind of a focus on like the upcoming marathon game. DieMango, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Now, Dai, I know I gave you a very brief introduction, but I guess we kind of want to expand on that and explain in your own words what you do and what motivates the art that you put out.
Sure. So I'm DieMango. For quite a bit ago, actually, I was actually a game designer, and through that line of work, I started doing pixel art. One thing led to another, and I had to like pay off my debt with my artwork. So over the years, became a freelancer, which brings me to what I am now, which is pretty nice.
Now, I think you're like the first pixel artist I've ever had on this program, and usually with you know I guess I could say with artists in general, it comes from, I get people from all different types of backgrounds. You know, some people that have pursued this as just more of like a hobby, others that have studied in more of a collegiate sense. So I guess especially for pixel art, because I can't imagine there's like a straightforward way to necessarily study this, at least in like a in a collegiate setting. Like, what is your background? Like, is art something that you studied in like more of a quote unquote like professional setting, or is it just something that you pursued as like a hobby?
I think I'm mostly self-taught. There was like some courses here and there with like Photoshop and some programs, but like most of the things I know is like self-taught through like public available material and other pixel artists actually that like over the years helped me start out. But after the like initial bump was over of like difficulty to get into pixel art, it was like pretty much just like honing that thing, because as you mentioned, pixel art is a little bit of a niche thing. So there isn't, I mean, nowadays there's like a huge amount of like videos that like explain how to do like tile sets or like more gamey stuff. But the biggest thing about Pixar, I feel like, is you have a lot of like starter content, like how to get into it, because I feel like that's probably the hard part about Pixar, because it's a little bit, it's very different. It's not just a little bit different to like most other arts. But I feel like after that, getting like better at Pixar is like a very like personal endeavor, because it's not what you would technically pick up if you were to have a career or like specifically want to like illustrate something, I would say.
Yeah, I guess I want to say too, because talking about like kind of the niche nature of pixel art, that it's a very specific aesthetic to chase. Like, it's something that not to give away my own age, but kind of like an old head like me would be more, like, I guess, kind of accustomed to, or at the very least more interested in. So I guess and I don't want to like necessarily assume your age or anything, but I guess what got you into like pixel art?
Technically, that's a good point, actually, because Pixar do be like a old head type of thing, because it's so tied to like early computers and stuff like that. But I'm like 25, so I'm relatively young when it comes to that. So the inspirations I have for making Pixar are like more modern games like Terraria and Minecraft, where that just was a big thing when I was like in my developing stage, and was just like interesting to get into.
And I always kind of wonder about that, because I know I can't remember exactly who was talking about this, but there was this kind of idea that because nowadays there is kind of like this, I don't know if I'd say like this renaissance of like pixel art, the pixel art aesthetic in a lot of indie games, especially if you want to like kind of harken back to titles of the yesteryear. Like, for example, the B-roll I'm using now is a Shattered Pixel Dungeon, which, pixel art game. But I know, like, I think somebody was talking about this idea that sometimes to achieve like the pixel art, it's like a fake pixel art effect where it's like you draw something like in a more traditional like digital art style, and then you just apply a pixelized effects to like give it the appearance of like pixel art, right? And so I guess for you, like, how would somebody distinct, like, I guess as somebody that is more familiar with creating pixel art pieces, how would somebody distinguish between something that was genuinely like conceived from the onset as like a pixel art piece versus something that was drawn as, like I said, like a line art piece and then just pixelized after the fact?
I think it comes down to intent, because PixArt, even though it's so niche, it has quite a lot of like approaches of like how you can do it, because like the retro approach usually actually goes back to what you just said, like just scanning some sort of like illustration you had, or like, I don't know, something like Mortal Kombat, where you have like live action stuff and then scanalize it to like make it look like a sprite and stuff like that. And that is definitely like a approach. And I think something like what I do, or like now with like the PixArt Renaissance, there's this thing where PixArt is more treated for like used for what it is, instead of like, oh, we have to like either emulate what has been in the past, which is like, oh, we can't really do anything else. We have to like display it with pixels. So it's like trying to ape more traditional illustrations. Meanwhile, with like more modern pixel art, you actually try to like work with its strength. Like PixArt is very clean, has very limited colors, and you can like really make it like sharp. Like you can like use the shapes of the pixels, because it's everything on the grid and stuff like that, to make like very precise shapes and like really play with that. And I think that's like the biggest difference with like that kind of approach, and how you could like differentiate it. So there's also like a good amount of people actually that use like just like a pixel brush, and I feel like you can like tell that it's like just an illustration made with a pixel brush when you like zoom in, where like the lines and anti-aliasing and stuff like that just doesn't look like hand plays. But like I really like that stuff as well, actually.
Yeah, it's just I know sometimes if you do it like, with let's say a pixel brush, or you do like a drawn line art, and then you like apply the effect to make it pixelized, like sometimes you get things that shouldn't be well, I say not necessarily that shouldn't be possible with pixel art, but that would be very difficult if you actually did it like just conceiving it as a pixel art first and foremost. So I know sometimes you get kind of that wonkery here and there, but I guess seeing how the first pixel artists I've had on here, I'm not as familiar with like the process, or even like really the technologies that are utilized to create like pixel art pieces, or that, let's say, that you would use to create pixel art pieces. So I guess let's say you want to walk through your like process with somebody, like I guess just kind of explain how you go about creating a pixel art piece.
For sure. So I used a program that is called Graphic Scale for a long time. It's like some freeware that is pretty bare bones. Like it's if someone were to like actually use it, it's kind of like Microsoft Paint. Like it's not that deep. But nowadays, because I've been like getting more intricate with my animations, I'm using Acer Sprite, which is like I think the closest that you can use to like the industry standard, I suppose. And with like PixArt, I feel like how I start my pieces, it's pretty similar to someone who would be like digitally painting something. I'm still using a mouse, which is probably the weirdest aspect of me making art, because I do know a good amount of pixel artists that actually use a tablet, because it's like, you just, if you draw lines and all that kind of stuff, that's still the most normal way to like approach that. But I'm using a mouse to like paint with like a pretty big brush and just put down like blobs of color. And how painting goes is like, yeah, just making like a rough shape and then carving out. And the way I see drawing is very like three-dimensional. So like it's literally like sculpting pretty much for me when I have to like do something. And actually it's pretty messy at first. Like pixel art is like very clean when it's done, and I do know some people that like start clean and end clean, but I definitely like start really messy to just like get the shape down, and it's probably way closer to like a traditional illustration than most pixel art people, where I just like draw away, paint away, and then when I think it looks like what I wanted roughly, I start like cleaning everything up, and there the like pixel aspect comes into focus where for example, I draw a lot of mechanical. So there's like a lot of straight lines and a lot of like sharp edges and all that kind of stuff. And in pixel art, you can like get very precise with the angles of your lines. Like, I think the best way to describe it is if you have like a straight line, it's of course a straight pixel. But if it's like slightly angled, it's like steps. So you would like go 2 pixels, then one down, 2 pixels, and one down. And of course, then you can go 3 pixel, one down, or 4 pixel and one down. And so all the lines are like very precise if you do it that way. And I would like search out all those lines, maybe change my sketch a little bit so they like fall into those predetermined lines better, because those predetermined lines just look better. And then when everything is like very clean, you like do stuff like anti-aliasing, like adding small little pixels that kind of ape what a digital brush would do to just like soften certain edges and stuff like that. And down and therefore, and of course, I'm an animator, so then I would go into animation, but that is probably not too different to like other illustration styles. I think the only big difference with like pixel animation is you have like less loss of like quality. So if you like were to rotate something in like a traditional illustration, everything would like get destroyed pretty much. Like it would get fuzzy, it would get just bad because the program has to interpolate how to like rotate everything and stuff like that. But in pixel art, because it's like very few pixels, it also gets kind of destroyed, but it's easier to like clean up. So like moving around a piece, spinning a piece, all that kind of stuff is like a little bit less of a mess, and therefore you can actually animate pretty fast. I have yet to like run that through with like a proper animator, because I don't know many that do it like regularly, because animation is also one of those things that is like painful for most people. So I don't get to talk about it too much. But I think pixel art you can like animate quicker. Like it's less of a pain, at least for me. Maybe I'm just picking it up really quickly.
Yeah, I was saying as somebody that I had to like utilize your artwork for like the thumbnail, I very much have grown kind of appreciation for your not line work, like your border work with your pieces, especially trying to like because I had to crop out the background for like the thumbnail and everything. So I very much appreciate your work, especially since I had to like zoom in and like look at the finer details of it. But I guess so you're talking about like your inspiration was like Minecraft and Terraria, kind of like these, more modern games that are chasing like, the pixel art aesthetic of like older games. But I guess if I had to ask you, who do you think is like the greatest of all time in terms of like pixel art and the pixel aesthetic? Because for me, like my personal fan favorites are, even though I'm terrible at the games, I like a lot of the very old school like Fatal Fury artists. Like think like 90, I want to say 97, 98. I'm not sure which is the one that had like the really good like pixel art. But I guess yeah, for you, who do you think is like the best pixel artist? Like if you want to study pixel art, you should study this person's work.
It's very difficult. It's like saying like what is the best art form, because there's like so much to choose from, and in Pixar there's like definitely like very specialized people. If I had to like pick someone, mm, do you know the game Loop Hero actually?
What's the game?
Loop Hero.
Oh, Loop Hero. No, I mean I've heard of it, but no, I haven't had a chance to like really play it or engage with it anyway.
I think Loop Hero is like the only game that has like a very specific like pixel art style that like did well, because like that style is like so detailed. Like I can actually like maybe send you some stuff, but like Loop Hero, and like I personally I like a small game called Slice and Dice, which also has a similar style from the same pixel art community, which is like, if I had to best describe it, it's like from the old Soviet states. There's like a lot of pixel artists in like Ukraine and Russia and all the smaller old Soviet states that have like their own little community, and they do like really really detailed pixel art style. And I'm blanking a little bit on their names because I haven't interacted with the pixel art community in a while, but I know that like Loop Hero and Slice and Dice specifically has that like kind of insane, borderline, impossible feeling pixel art style, where you have like, how to best describe it, where it's like the game is at your normal resolution, like you have like 3000 times 1000 canvases, but they are still putting like pixels down one by one, and like not like making big shapes, but it's like all still small and very detailed, and it's like killing me looking at that stuff. I'm like, I couldn't do that. That is like the purest pixel art I could conceive, and it's a lot for me personally. Oh.
Well, I guess how would I want to phrase this next question? Well, I guess I'll say that you know, like I would say you're pretty popular on Twitter. You've gotten quite a bit of a following. You know, at least from what I've seen. So I guess I'm kind of curious, as somebody that chases kind of this pixel art aesthetic, which you know might not necessarily be for everyone. You know, because it is kind of more antiquated. Are you surprised at people's like, I guess, reception to your work and how much they, you know, like your work and like what you do?
Definitely. I mean, there's not many big pixel artists, and I feel like the ones that are big either are like, how do I put this? I think I'm very shocked at me being popular because I'm very niche. Because it's not just pixel art, it's also like specifically like original characters and like a lot of mechanical stuff. But I feel like because it's so niche, I got like a very like core audience, where I feel like if I were like someone, like I talk to like other artists, and if I were someone who only did fan art, for example, I feel like people stick around less for what your art is and for more of like, it's a fan art, so you're like part of that community, part of that. But because I'm so niche and so specific, if you already like my art, you like stick around for long. Like it's less like fickle in that nature, I feel like. And I'm also very like focused. Like it's not like I'm gonna like randomly branch out to something else, even though I kind of did. I think my early career I was known for mechas, and there was like a thing for a while, but I noticed that, okay, if I do mechas for like the rest of my life, I'm probably gonna like not like it because it already was very draining and very like dry. Like it's like uh, it's like it already felt like work pretty much for some reason. Like I kind of like drew myself into a corner, and then when I started like original characters, trying to be maybe a tiny bit suggestive or like doing more cute stuff or just like broadening my scope a little bit because for the longest time I was really bad at like drawing like humans or like making a face that doesn't look uncanny. And I think people telling me that I'm bad at that stuff kind of spurred me to like go into original characters and like double down. Like I feel like my entire thing is me feeling like I need to double down, and every time I do it, it like works out weirdly enough. I don't think that's like the most tactical approach for most people, but I think it's the most enjoyable. Like sticking with like what you like and like being true to yourself. And of course, if you're true to yourself, it gets harder to like dislike what you're doing. So if you don't dislike what you're doing, you're probably also going to draw better, and so it like feeds itself. So I feel like doing that over the years definitely like got me to where I am, and it's pretty nice actually.
Yeah, but I have noticed that you did dabble very little bit. I don't know if it was just like a one-off thing, but you'd have dabbled a little bit in like line art work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There was like a year where I was really, really unhappy with my art. Like I felt sort of trapped and like felt like I needed to do something drastic. And of course, if you're like a pixel artist, there will always be the like feeling in the back of your mind just being like, okay, would things have gone differently better or like just be in a state that you would be happier with if you didn't do pixel art? And I feel like a lot of pixel artists I talked with will have that at some point because like pixel art is limiting in a lot of ways, and a lot of pixel artists kind of lament that they are like traditional like the basics are like kind of weak. Like a lot of pixel artists might have done pixel artists exclusively and are not like traditionally taught or educated, and might not know how to just like sketch something or do like an illustration. So I challenged myself slash had to just like get a mind refresh and started doing like just digital painting, and it was nice. It wasn't it was surprisingly not too different to what I'd done before, except I couldn't animate because I couldn't like acclimate to the new programs I use to for animation. And honestly, it didn't make me that much happier. Like I wasn't like I didn't have a revelation or felt like, oh, this is better or worse than what I did before. I just realized that I had a bad year pretty much. It was just like, okay, I was doing bad. I was trying something new, thinking it might like fix my problems. No, I was still doing bad. So I stopped with it at some point and went back to Pixart. Also because Pixart is my work with like commissions and everything. So had to like get back in some way to like also keep that up. But at the end of the day, it was a nice experiment. I would probably go back to it at some point if I had a good reason. But right now, I'm like pretty happy with Pixart again. So it's not too bad.
When first getting started with pixel artwork, what do you think, like, let's say for like other artists that are like just starting out, what do you think is the biggest mistake that they often make when first trying to approach, creating like a pixel art work piece as opposed to like other, like line art or other forms of like digital art?
I think two things. First of all, I hope it's not like that anymore. But like it was kind of like that when I started Pixar. Um, when you interact with a lot of Pixar artists, there is a certain amount of gatekeeping and like a lot of people saying like this is the correct way, or like when you do certain things, it's like against the nature of pixel art and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, when you like digitize stuff or like use certain tools like blending and stuff like that, where it's technically like dirty and you're like ruining the quote unquote integrity of the clean pixels. If someone starts out and hears that kind of stuff, they might get like intimidated into like a rule set or like a conduct of how you are supposed to like do stuff. And I hope that doesn't happen. And if someone were to start Pixar and like gets those vibes, they should probably ignore it. And like at the end of the day, it's art. So you have to like to do it first before you like do something like quote unquote correctly. Because if you don't like doing it, then you can pretty much stop there, because like it's not supposed to be a chore. And I think the second thing I would tell someone is what I mentioned before, which is like not neglect the basics, the like traditional skills every artist should have. So like be open to like study or like like use references and like actually understand the subject you're drawing, because at the end of the day, even though Pixar is like a different medium, it's still important to like, I don't know, if you're drawing like a person, to like understand what you're actually drawing. So like if you're trying to draw their face or their body, you do have to like dig into it, like not just think about drawing a pretty picture, but like actually like understanding, like, okay, if I'm trying to draw a pretty face, I need to understand how a face even works, or like why something would look pretty, and like just have like a certain hunger to like learn more. Because with both those points, I feel like it's always like Pixar could kind of like condense your vision, like make the scope of what you're trying to do smaller. And if you like put yourself in a box like that, it gets difficult. Like I would say Pixar doesn't have a specific way of looking, and you're not supposed to like ignore everything else just because you're making Pixar. At the end of the day, you're still drawing. So like everything else applies that you would learn from just normal drawing as well.
Well, we are around the halfway point for this episode, and it's a section that I kind of like to do with my previous episodes. I've tweeted in the past, but I've kind of settled on. I always like to ask people, given your profession of being a pixel artist, I guess, what is your biggest criticism of the pixel art field, or I guess I'll even just say like the art field in general? What's your biggest criticism right now?
My biggest criticism, how I think my biggest criticism would probably go towards like game development in general, because Pixar is very tied to game development. I feel like if you become a Pixar artist or decide to be a Pixar artist, there's like an 80% chance you done it because of, maybe even higher, like maybe 90% chance of it being because you liked a game or you want to make a game. And my biggest criticism is that there is just still, even now that I'm like a freelancer and not like when I was 16 and starting out, there's like still no easy ways to like break into that. Like it's so muddled. There are like government system to like encourage game development and stuff like that, but it's still all bad. Like game development is, I feel like, honestly, when I think about it, it's like most creative fields. If you start trying to be like professional about it, it's like kind of a meat grinder, where even if you're like good or something like that, education doesn't really get you ahead. And like it's a lot of word of mouth and a lot of luck. And if you're finally in like your dream studio, you're probably still kind of a slave to the like project, and you can't really like show your individuality. And it's I think that's like the criticism I have for like most creative fields, where like it's usually pretty difficult to like break into. And with Pixar especially, because it's like such a niche thing. Of course, there's like no Pixar seniors at a company that could like teach you how to do it or like work you through it. If you get into a pixel project, you're probably the sole artist and have to like break your back trying to like appease the project, and then the classic will happen where it won't even come out, or like you have to like somehow get out of it because it's too much for you and stuff like that. So that would be like my biggest criticism, I feel like.
That's interesting. In the beginning of your answer, you were talking about like how there's government programs to like encourage like to like encourage artists. I don't know if we have anything like that here in and I don't want necessarily dox you or anything, but I don't know if we have anything necessarily like that here in America. So I guess I'm curious, like what do you like? What do those programs usually entail?
So I actually do think there's something in America, because I remember one program where I was like, oh, that was pretty cool, which is like, oh, what was it? It was even at the, I think it was even at the Game Awards, where it was a program for like, I think, girls for game dev or something like that, where like schoolgirls can have like a game dev course and like learn
Oh
programming and
yeah,
stuff
like
like
the
that.
initiative to get like more girls into game development. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
like
thought you were
programs
talking
like
about
that.
like because I know like in America you sometimes have like grant stuff, or like I guess I was thinking
Oh,
more like in the
oh yeah, yeah,
college.
yeah.
Yeah.
There are grants as well. Like I remember very clearly when I was still studying game dev. There were also grants here in Germany, but with any grant program, it's always like difficult to apply to, kind of obtuse what they actually want from you and if you're actually gonna get it. I think in Australia there was also a grant like that, but like the only time I heard about that grant was like watching a video about someone talking about how it's like horrible to apply to, and they didn't get the money anyways. Like they got the money but then had to give it back and stuff like that. So that's what I meant with like there are technically like government pushes to like have that industry thrive a little bit more, but it's always messy. It's there's like no easy, oh yeah, I could like apply for a grant because I'm making an educational game. There's probably like a hook to it, and also like not everyone wants to make an educational game, I suppose. So like that was like the best example I had in my head right now, because I think the grant I heard about was specifically for educational games. So like, you know.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Um. So I guess kind of shifting focus a little bit. You're known for a lot of your OC work, but you're also known for kind of well, I would say like your love of marathon, especially like the upcoming marathon, the upcoming like remake from Bungie. I guess I'm kind of curious because marathon is for context, I tried getting into it, like the old school. I think it was like 1997 game where it was like a boomer shooter or whatever. And well, I do find it's fun. Unfortunately, I can't get into boomer shooters because I have that thing where playing them too long, I get like very nauseous. I get like motion sickness.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I barely completed the first Doom, and I can't get into the second one because it's just like I hate feeling sick while playing this game.
Yeah.
Especially with Doom because you have to, especially in the later levels, you have to like navigate, the larger maps. But anyways, I guess I'm kind of curious, like, what got you into Marathon? Did you like the older 1997 game, or were you just a fan of like the current aesthetic that Marathon is going with?
So the old marathon, I definitely wasn't a fan because I wasn't born in that time, and I never heard about it uh, until like the very first reveal that was like, I think also at the Game Awards or something like that. Like when I first saw that reveal, I got like instantly hooked because I was into Destiny 2 for like a little bit. Like when it like came out, I heard about it. When it was still like trying to like get its footing, I played it, and I had a lot of fun in the PvP. It felt pretty good. I kind of understood what people meant with like Bungie gameplay feel when they like talk about Halo and stuff like that, which was also something I would hear in school, but like there was only like one or two people that actually like knew about Halo, because where I'm from, I feel like it wasn't that known. There was not that much of a gamer scene. So like I always had it in the back of my mind of like, okay, Bungie is like known for the like good gameplay. I played a little bit of Destiny 2, which I enjoyed. Wasn't something I would have stuck around with till now, which like the game is like really old and has a lot of history now. But like when the first reveal dropped, I was like, okay, this is very interesting. This looks very different and looks risky. I think the biggest part that like makes me gravitate towards Marathon is like it has an aesthetic that like as an artist I just really appreciate, because you don't see anything this risky from a studio that is like well regarded and has the actual like funds to like make it a thing. It could have stayed at that, just being like mildly interested and being like, okay, this is a cool art style. I might make fan art of it if it's like a good game. And I did make fan art of it when the like runners and characters got revealed, because I'm like, okay. And I do wonder if someone pulled a switch, or I got like really lucky, but I got into the like alpha playtest of the game, and I'm gonna be so for real with you, it wasn't that crazy. Like I wasn't really like sold on it, and was like, all right, this is like the type of game that I would still support because it has a great art style, but it wouldn't be something I would like sink my whole life into. Which did change at some point, because I also got into the October playtest. And in the October playtest, that was after a lot of controversy and a lot of like restructuring, them delaying the game and like saying like, okay, we need to like go back to the drawing board and listen to what people were talking about in the alpha that wasn't crazy well received. And the October test had me hooked. Like that thing ran for a week, and I like sank like 60 hours into it. Like I played that thing nearly religiously. It was so much fun. And like after that test, I was like, okay, now I'm committed. Now I feel like the like love for the art style and like me also being a huge gamer is finally like intersecting, where I'm like, okay, this is the game. Because there were like a lot of games before that where I think when I was younger, I would be like part of communities where I would like draw sprites for a game, like fan made. Like, I don't know, I was a fan of a card game, for example. So I would make sprites for certain units. And there were like community made contests of like make your own card. And I would like draw the card for the winner and would like fuel the community like that. But I didn't have that for a while because, I mean, life, you get older, you have like less time for that kind of stuff. You're not like that fully involved with your community anymore. But like when that stuff happened with Marathon, I didn't even mention the ARG. They had like a huge ARG. But like when that stuff happened with Marathon, I was like, okay, I always yearned to go back to like being part of a community, like really be involved with that kind of stuff. And this is like I knew this is the game now. Okay, it's like fun to play. It's probably gonna like have a good lifespan. It has a really interesting story and lore. I'm also someone who really likes to get into lore and like dig into like the history of a game and also like what happens in the game and stuff like that. And so that just spurred me on to like make a bunch of fan art, which I haven't done in like years, but you like something, it becomes really easy. So that's why I'm like pumping out so many fan arts now. And like currently, before this podcast, I actually been working on like a piece that I'm like preparing for the launch of the game. So I have like something ready to like celebrate it. So, and I'm very active in the like community Discord, and actually got into their creator program, which I don't fully know yet what that entails, but I got into it. So maybe there will be like other opportunities. Oh, and I think the last thing is the community has been so nice to me that I already got like commissioned work. Like I was able to do like little Twitch emotes, small little animations, and I feel like that's probably gonna continue. And I wouldn't be mad if that would be like the way I will make my money in the future. I would probably get sick of it at some point, but for the time being, it's like a really good time.
Well, yeah, I mean, congrats on making it to their creator program. It makes sense because, as far as I see, you're like Marathon's strongest soldier. You know, you're their biggest supporter, as far as I've seen online. Um, but yeah, as somebody that only casually has kept up with the news about Marathon, I know like recently a lot of people compare it to like Ark because I think, and you can probably enlighten me more on this. Like they're both like kind of like extraction shooters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, at least from what I've seen, like Marathon does look very interesting. I like the whole yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like part of me wants to say it's not like cyberpunk because cyberpunk kind of has like more of a grittiness to it, whereas, for context, like the modern Marathon look is very different from like the older game, which was like God, well, how would I describe the aesthetic of like the older Marathon game? Like that the older Marathon was very much more traditional, like kind of sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
But like the modern Marathon, kind of like this. God, I don't know. Like, how would you describe the aesthetic of like the modern Marathon? Because it's like cyberpunk seems like a weird way to do it. Again, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, how would you explain the like aesthetic of like the modern Marathon game? Like, why you think it's so appealing?
Cyberpunk, I feel like, is not too far-fetched because of the like lore of it, but I do get what you mean with the like cyberpunk being gritty. This is like clean. The studio itself like coined the term, or like maybe didn't coin the term, but like explained the aesthetic as like graphic realism, where you have like the graphic elements, like a lot of like strong shapes, like you have squares and rounded edges, and everything is like hyper clean, but it's like still realistic. So like everything needs to have its very specific purpose. And the best way to describe Marathon, I feel like, is everything is 3D printed, pretty much. Like the idea of the new Marathon is like you got like a colony really far away, and now runners are coming in, which are like pretty much people being put into artificial shells to like figure out what happened at that like colony that where everything went wrong, which is like a pretty straightforward trope. But the idea being like everything being 3D printed, everything having to be like pretty much survive and get to that like colony that is like light years away. So all the technology needs to be like pretty much fastly made on site, and that's why the characters look the way they are, because they are like made out of like semi-disposable parts. Like they are still sleek and like kind of like racing and graphical, but at the same time they are supposed to like break and be destroyed. And in a weird way, someone brought that up once, in a weird way it sort of still mirrors the like very old Marathon style, because the old Marathon still had color. Like it was sci-fi and it was kind of cheesy in certain aspects. Like everything was like color coded and kind of like boomer shooters like Doom and stuff, where you have like a yellow key card and a red key card, and somehow they were able to like keep the color, which is like pretty exciting for me. Like keep the color and still, I wouldn't say that was like in the aesthetic of the old Marathon, but like keep the like eerie and like creepy parts of it, which was more in the lore and like logs you can find in the game. But like with the new marathon, it's like specifically the contrast between, okay, everyone is like 3D printed very clean because they just rolled off a fucking conveyor belt, but at the same time they are like figuring something out, like something really messed out up in the like colony, and the like juxtaposition of like clean and like weird alien bullshit that is happening there is like, it's like how would I would describe the like core of like the marathon aesthetic, the new marathon aesthetic at least.
Well, I want to emphasize that I'm not, that this isn't sponsored by Marathon. The only reason why I kind of want to focus on Marathon is because a lot of your work is like kind of very much, at least a lot of your current work is very associated with Marathon. But I guess as somebody that has actually had a chance to like play the game, what is your biggest, are there any like big concerns that you have about its release, like potential issues that you could see like with its, you know, how it releases to the general public or how it like plays in general?
I guess I'm very biased because the stuff I played in the October test was like really good, but like also a lot was missing. And the things that would go bad for me would literally just be, I am expecting right now what I played will be just extruded. Like it will just be more. And that would be great for me. Like them just going further in what I have seen. And where that would fail is, oh, there's actually a lot less than I expected in the game, which I don't think so, because there's like a lot of things I couldn't play that they already teased here and there and like released in their like recent like developer updates and like all that kind of stuff. But if I had to like have fears that are like not biased by me already being like a playtester, I think it's the general sentiment of the game. Like there's like a lot of like with the alpha there was a lot of like justified criticism gameplay wise. Like stuff was missing. Then we had like a big art scandal, which is probably too much to get into. And the general sentiment of the public kind of soured from that. And now it's like picking up again because their marketing machine is like pumping a lot of stuff out. But I still see a lot of like unjustified hate. Like I can understand being like on the fence, like, okay, people still have to play it. This looks very different and it's kind of weird. Also, it's an extraction shooter, which is like kind of like for most people like the new genre to dog on, kind of like battle royales and or like hero shooters and stuff like that. Like it's like the new thing to just go, ugh, they're just trying to like follow a trend and it's just a buzzword. And there's like a lot of that. There's like a lot of like general like negative sentiment that is not based in too much tangibility. So I wonder if that will like impact the initial player numbers. And of course, with like a game that wants to be like a live service game and like live for a good amount of time, you do need to have like a good, healthy player base. But I'm leaning positive because I'm of course involved in the community and I'm on the server. So I know a great amount of people that are like hooked like me. So I know that we will probably stick around for a good amount of time. But like how the general public is gonna like digest something that is, I can't lie, a little not the easiest to digest, not the like easiest pitch that you can just put in like a neat little bow and like give someone. That has to be seen yet, because like someone like me likes digging into stuff, but like I don't think the general public wants to like dig and like find complexity or like be overwhelmed with complexity or whatever it is, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, when it was first announced, I was very like kind of I guess surprised that they were going for like this kind of remake of Marathon, considering how people see like Marathon as like the, oh my god, what's the word I'm looking for, predecessor,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
like Halo, they like Marathon walked so Halo can run, right?
yeah,
So it was very interesting for them to come back to that and to like kind of take it in this whole new approach. I guess I'm very curious to see how. Yeah, I'm also very curious to see how it pans out in terms of its success. With like extraction shooters in general, it's always been a genre I kind of want to play, but at the same time, I know it has like this very, well, at least like with something like Arc Raiders, it has this very like social element to it, which I don't mind social games, but sometimes you have to be like in the mood for it, right? And
yeah.
it's just a lot of times I don't want to like get on a mic, have somebody yell a bunch of slurs at me, and then I get off mad. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, no, that is totally understandable. I have to say, it's kind of interesting to hear that actually, because um, how I knew extraction shooters was actually from Tarkov, which is shoot on sight. Like you don't really like talk to people. So like Arc Raiders is kind of like the new wave, or like Arc Raiders is putting into people that like that social aspect is like a big point of it, because I feel like that social aspect was for the longest time just like a extra thing. Like very rarely you will have someone who is just like, all right, uh, I just went through hell. I'm gonna turn on my mic and just beg for my life because I don't want to like lose right now. And that's how I thought with like Tarkov. But like now with Arc Raiders, where it's like the social aspect, that is actually also not my thing. Like I'm not crazy on like turning on the mic and like chatting with someone, or like assuming someone is friendly. I do be a very traditionally PvP type of player. Like I always excelled at like pretty much just shitting on a lobby pretty much. Like when I play a PvP game, it's usually to just like be good at it and like shoot people. So like Arc Raiders is also not fully my speed, even though I'm like a semi fan of Embark because of their previous game, the finals. Um, so I think to like a point that you actually mentioned earlier, why Bungie would like remake Marathon. Uh, One thing, weirdly enough, it's like a continuation, which is kind of weird. It's not even a remake. They are actually continuing the story, which is weird to think about. Like I also like learned that only like digging into the lore and like lore videos on YouTube. But another thing about like extraction, I feel like is like the main core about extraction and why Bungie is like making a marathon game is like it's like really immersive. Like it's like the most straightforward way to like gamify you being in the game. Like the idea of like, okay, you're going in, you're exploring, and you can lose everything because that's what happens if you were doing something like this in real life, I suppose, if you were like a contractor trying to like scope something out. So like extraction is very interesting in that way, where there can be a social aspect, kind of like in real life, you can just yap to someone and make it like a role playing experience pretty much. Or it's literally just the fact that you can lose everything and like whatever you gain is whatever you get. And it's really interesting. Like extraction shooters are a very interesting system, which also is like one thing I never actually played extraction shooter except like doing playtests for Arc Raiders, which I kind of bounced off of. But like it's an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, because I know in some like extraction shooters, at least from what I've read, there's like sometimes this rule that like if a person isn't on a mic, you just immediately default to just killing them because you can't trust them.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But I guess going back to your own artwork, you said a little while ago that a lot of people get into pixel art as a part of like game development to especially like trying to develop like old school feeling type games. Is that something that interests you? Like doing like potentially developing a game in your future if you haven't already, and I'm just not aware of it because I just forgot to look it up.
Definitely. I mean, I started Pixelate because I was a game designer, or like studied game design at least. So I did work on a few projects, but from my tone, you probably can assume that most of those projects didn't pan out or like didn't go anywhere. So I definitely told myself at some point, if I wanna make a game, I probably have to do it through my own means at some point, and like doing it through your own means, that's a lot. Like you need not just the money and time, but like also the skill to like do all of that. So it has been in the back of my mind, like two scenarios of either I get old and like really wise and really good at what I'm doing, and then I can just do it myself, or there is actually some sort of way to like get onto a game project, probably as a freelancer, because I wouldn't want to be employed in a company because I have too many like bad experiences with that. But the opportunity hasn't presented itself. I mean, there were opportunity that like presented themselves, but a big thing about like how I draw with like my very niche likings and like my very niche art is always like, if someone gives me an opportunity, usually it's not very tailored to my strengths. Like usually they just want me as like a generalist, or like kind of ask something of me that I'm not exactly strong with. So I have turned down a few things, not lately, but like there was a good amount when there was like a game development bubble. But like in the future, maybe. Maybe there will be something, but like for now, I'm pretty happy as like a freelancer working for like private people, and only would like consider making a game when it somehow gets easier, or like I somehow have more knowledge or more strength to do it. Pretty much.
So I guess we're kind of broaching a bit towards the end of the episode. I guess for people that have stumbled across this episode and they're a fan of your work, are there any potential future projects that you feel like you can discuss right now in this setting? Or like, let's say if you do commissions where people can potentially commission you, or just in general, like engage with your work, where would they go?
Sure. I mean, I'm mostly on Twitter and also on Newgrounds, which I don't check as often. But if someone were to like commission me, they can literally just DM me, or like I think I have my email. Yeah, I have my email in my description now, in my bio now on Twitter. So like that's my work email, where people can like write me any request and any projects. I mean, earlier I mentioned that I'm like working on a pretty big marathon fan art right now, and other than that, I am I have like a ginormous like reference board with like a shit ton of like original characters I want to like draw at some point, that I like have in my brain, or like daydreamed about what how they look like, or what kind of like things they would have in their character design. So hopefully I will like get around to like making all of those, but like currently there's not too many plans. I might draw a character called Zilla, which is like a mech pilot. I definitely want to like refresh her design and like draw a mecha again, pretty much. Just like get into the weeds of like trying to design how to like have the cockpit open and her climbing in and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we all look forward to that. Thank you for joining us on this program. And to anyone that has stuck this far in the episode, thank you for listening. And if you want more of my voice, you could stay tuned to after this episode for Sauce on the Side, where I continue the conversation by myself, where I talk about, recording this episode and what it took and stuff like that. So if you want to enjoy that. Stay tuned, and I will catch you all later. Bye.